In the year 2000, a small, struggling startup asked a powerful corporation for a meeting. The startup had been bleeding money for 3 years. It had never turned a profit. It had a weird name, a tiny team, and a business model most people thought was a joke. The CEO of the startup walked into that meeting and made a bold offer. Buy us. We'll sell the whole company to you, 100%, for just $50 million. The corporation, worth $6 billion at the time, laughed them out of the room. That startup was Netflix. That corporation was Blockbuster. And what happened next is one of the most devastating business collapses in modern history. But to understand why Blockbuster made that fatal mistake, you have to go back to where it all started and understand just how dominant they really were. At its peak, Blockbuster wasn't just a video store, it was an empire. By 2004, the company operated over 9,000 stores across the United States and more than 25 countries worldwide. Every Friday night in America, millions of families made the same ritual trip: walk the blue and yellow aisles, grab a new release, get home before it got late. Blockbuster had created a cultural institution. The company was founded in 1985 by David Cook in Dallas, Texas. Cook was a software entrepreneur who saw an opportunity. Video rental stores at the time were small, disorganized, mom and pop operations. Cook's insight was simple but powerful. Use a database, track inventory, make the experience clean, professional, and reliable. Within 6 months, it was already doing $100,000 a week in revenue. Wayne Huizenga, the man who had already built Waste Management and AutoNation into billion-dollar companies, bought control of Blockbuster in 1987. He immediately understood what he had. By 1993, Blockbuster had over 3,400 stores. In 1994, Viacom acquired Blockbuster for $8.4 billion. That's how big this thing was. $8.4 billion for a video rental chain. The late fee model was genius. You rented a movie for $3.99. You had 5 days to return it. Late? That's another $3.99 per day. Some customers reported returning videos that had racked up more in fees than the video itself cost to buy. By some estimates, Blockbuster was collecting $800 million per year just in late fees. That's 16% of total revenue from punishing its own customers. While Blockbuster was collecting hundreds of millions in late fees, a 40-year-old software engineer in California got a bill in the mail, and it changed everything. In 1997, Reed Hastings returned a copy of Apollo 13 to his local Blockbuster 6 weeks late. The late fee, $40. He was embarrassed to tell his wife. According to Hastings, that moment of frustration sparked an idea. What if you ran a video rental service like a gym membership, pay a flat monthly fee, use it as much as you want, no late fees, ever? The truth is slightly more complicated. Hastings and his co-founder Mark Randolph had already been workshopping startup ideas for months before the Apollo 13 story. But the core insight was real. The late fee model was a broken customer experience, and there was a better way. Netflix launched in April 1998 as a DVD by mail service. You'd go online, choose movies, and they'd arrive in your mailbox in bright red envelopes. When you were done, you'd drop them back in the mail. No return trip, no late fees, no due dates. At first, Netflix charged per rental, just like a traditional store. But in 1999, they switched to a subscription model, $15.95 per month. Unlimited DVDs up to 3 at a time. It was the move that changed everything. The early years were brutal. The dot-com crash of 2000 nearly destroyed the company. Netflix was burning through cash. Hastings and Randolph tried to sell to Amazon. Jeff Bezos turned them down. They tried Blockbuster. And that's when Blockbuster's executives famously laughed. One account says the Blockbuster CEO John Antioco couldn't stop smiling during the presentation. Netflix was asking for $50 million. Blockbuster passed without blinking. But here's what the Blockbuster executives didn't know. Netflix wasn't just selling DVDs by mail. They were building something far more dangerous. While Blockbuster focused on new releases, the movies everyone wanted on opening weekend, Netflix went a different direction entirely. They focused on the back catalog, the movies from 3, 5, 10 years ago that most people had forgotten. Why? Because those titles were cheap to license, they had no expiration, and they helped customers discover something unexpected. To make this work, Netflix built Cinematch, an early recommendation algorithm. You rated movies you'd seen, and Cinematch would predict what else you'd like. In 2006, Netflix offered a $1 million prize, the Netflix Prize, to any team that could improve Cinematch's accuracy by 10%. It became one of the most famous machine learning competitions in history, attracting researchers from around the world. The eventual winners achieved an 8.43% improvement. Netflix's data strategy was years ahead of anything in the industry. By 2005, Netflix had 4.2 million subscribers and was mailing over 1 million DVDs per day. They'd cracked a core problem. People didn't always know what they wanted to watch. Netflix helped them figure it out and kept them subscribed in the process. Meanwhile, Blockbuster wasn't completely blind. In 2004, a new CEO named John Antioco started to take the threat seriously. He brought in a digital media executive and began investing in Blockbuster Online, a direct competitor to Netflix's mail service. And for a moment, it looked like Blockbuster might actually win. Blockbuster Online was actually working. By 2005, it was growing faster than Netflix. For the first time, Reed Hastings was genuinely scared. But then something happened inside Blockbuster that would doom the entire company. John Antioco was not a bad CEO. In fact, he may have been the only person inside Blockbuster who truly understood what was coming. In 2004, he made two bold decisions that threatened Netflix's very existence. First, he launched Blockbuster Online with a direct attack on Netflix's subscription model. Same price, same idea, but with one massive advantage: in-store exchanges. You could return a mail DVD to any Blockbuster store and get a free in-store rental the same day. Netflix couldn't compete with that. Second, and this was the one that really mattered, Antioco killed the late fee. On January 1st, 2005, Blockbuster announced the end of late fees across all 9,000 stores. It was the bravest move in the company's history. It was also the most expensive. The decision cost Blockbuster an estimated $400 million in revenue in the first year alone. But Antioco believed it was necessary, that the late fee model was strangling customer loyalty and driving people straight to Netflix. Reed Hastings later admitted that the elimination of late fees terrified him. Netflix's biggest competitive advantage, no late fees, had just been copied by the world's most powerful video rental chain. If Blockbuster had stayed the course, the story might have ended very differently. But Blockbuster had a board, and Carl Icahn, the legendary activist investor, held a major stake. Econ was furious about the $400 million hit from eliminating late fees. He was furious about the investment in online operations. He waged a proxy war against Antioco, put his own directors on the board, and in 2005 engineered a dramatic reduction in Antioco's compensation. In 2007, Antioco resigned. The one man steering Blockbuster toward survival was gone. Blockbuster's new CEO made an immediate decision. He cut the online budget, brought back the late fees, and declared that Blockbuster's future was in its physical stores. That decision sealed the company's fate. In 2007, the same year Antioco left Blockbuster, Netflix launched something that would permanently change the entertainment industry. They called it Watch Now. For the first time, Netflix subscribers could stream movies and TV shows instantly, directly to their computers. No discs, no envelopes, no waiting. The stream was immediate. The library was small at first, around 1,000 titles, mostly older content the studios weren't protective of, But the technology worked, and Reed Hastings understood that this was the real future. He had always planned for this moment. The company's name, Netflix, had net in it from the very beginning. He had named it for the internet before the internet was even fast enough to stream video. By 2008, Netflix had partnered with hardware manufacturers to put its app directly on televisions, set-top boxes, and game consoles. The Xbox 360 partnership in 2008 was enormous. It gave Netflix instant access to millions of living rooms. By 2010, the Netflix app was on virtually every connected screen in America. Samsung TVs, LG TVs, PlayStation 3, Wii, iPad, iPhone. The infrastructure Hastings had been building for a decade was now weaponized. In 2010, Netflix's streaming library reached 20,000 titles. The company had 20 million subscribers. It was profitable. Its stock was climbing. Meanwhile, Blockbuster's new management, under Jim Keyes, who replaced Antioco, had reversed the online investment strategy and was focused on competing with convenience stores and gas stations for impulse snack purchases. That is not a metaphor. Keyes literally said in a 2008 interview that he didn't see Netflix as a threat. He was worried about 7-Eleven. And then the final blow came, not from Netflix, but from Wall Street. In 2010, Blockbuster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company that had been worth $8.4 billion just 16 years earlier listed $1.46 billion in debt. It had closed thousands of stores. It had lost its top executive. It had abandoned its online strategy. It had reversed the no late fees policy that might have saved it. Dish Network acquired Blockbuster in 2011 for just $320 million, a fraction of its former value, hoping to use the brand to build a streaming competitor. It didn't work. Dish closed the remaining corporate Blockbuster stores in 2013. By 2014, only a handful of independently owned franchise locations remained. Today, there is exactly one Blockbuster left on Earth. It's located in Bend, Oregon. The store is owned by Sandy Harding, who has run it since 2000. It has become a tourist destination. People drive from across the country to take photos outside the blue and yellow sign. The store has its own podcast. It sells branded merchandise. It has been rented on Airbnb. In a deep irony, the last Blockbuster survives, not by competing with Netflix, but by becoming a monument to nostalgia, something Netflix can never offer. Netflix, meanwhile, was not done. In 2011, the company began investing in original content. In 2013, House of Cards, Netflix's first major original series, was released all at once, all 13 episodes, available simultaneously. The binge-watching era had begun. Netflix had not only destroyed the video rental industry, it had restructured the entire way humanity consumes storytelling. But there's one more chapter to this story, and it's the one nobody talks about, because after destroying Blockbuster, Netflix almost destroyed itself. In 2011, at the height of its power, Netflix made a catastrophic mistake. In a single announcement, Hastings split the DVD by mail and streaming services into two separate companies, Netflix for streaming and Quickster for DVDs. Subscribers who wanted both would have to pay two separate bills, manage two separate accounts, and deal with two separate websites. The price of combined service jumped 60% overnight. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Netflix lost 800,000 subscribers in a single quarter, the first time it had ever lost subscribers. The stock dropped over 75% from its peak. Analysts declared Netflix finished. One headline called it the worst strategic decision since New Coke. Hastings reversed course within weeks. Quickster was canceled before it ever launched. He issued a public apology. Netflix survived. But the episode revealed something important. Even the company that destroyed Blockbuster was not immune to arrogance. The same blind spots that killed Blockbuster ignoring customer pain points, underestimating backlash, prioritizing internal strategy over user experience, had nearly killed Netflix too. The difference was that Hastings corrected course. Antioco tried to correct course at Blockbuster, but he was fired. That distinction between organizations that can adapt and organizations that cannot is the real story here. So, what's the real lesson from all of this? Because it's not just about Netflix and Blockbuster, this story is about every company that has ever existed. Blockbuster didn't fail because Netflix was a better company. Blockbuster failed because it was a great company, and greatness made it blind. It had the brand recognition, the distribution network, the customer relationships, the capital, and the talent to compete. At several critical moments, it was actually winning, but every time Blockbuster had to choose between protecting what it already had and investing in what was coming, it chose to protect the past. The late fees were too valuable to give up. Until they gave them up too late, the stores were too important to close. Until they all closed anyway, Blockbuster Online was gaining ground. Until the board killed the budget. Netflix's genius was never the technology. Streaming video was not a secret. The studios had the technology. The cable companies had the technology. Amazon had the technology. The difference was that Reed Hastings had built a culture that was willing to cannibalize its own business model before someone else did. He put streaming in direct competition with his own DVD service, deliberately. He bet the company on the future while the company was still profitable in the present. That is extraordinarily rare. And it is the reason Netflix is now worth over $300 billion, while the last blockbuster in the world sells branded merchandise to tourists in Bend, Oregon. The final lesson of Netflix and Blockbuster is this: the greatest threat to any successful company is its own success. The more dominant you are, the harder it is to see the threat. The higher your margins, the more painful it is to disrupt them. The bigger your stores, the harder it is to imagine a world without them. Blockbuster wasn't destroyed by Netflix. It was destroyed by the weight of its own empire and by the very late fees that once made it great. The $40 bill that Reed Hastings received in 1997 didn't just inspire a company, it exposed a vulnerability that a $6 billion corporation had hidden in plain sight. And Reed Hastings put it on his wall, built a startup around it, and waited for Blockbuster to look away. They always looked away.